So this guy, Joe Jonas, whoever did it, okay?
Yeah.
And Justin Timberlake's great at this too,
Oh,
right?
God.
I mean, he's fantastic at it. The fact that they're producing content for this pipeline, right, which is an audience channel. This is what Artist Direct was trying to do, right? Nobody could imagine that what really would happen would be that an artist might actually take it on their own, not only talk to a fan in a chat session, but look at that, a highly stylized produced piece, tongue-in-cheek, funny as shit, all right? He's wearing a Ricky Bobby Talladega Nights suit, going into, you know, this fake dinner with this girl that's not there. It's genius.
By
the way, I think that'll do more for him as it gets around than a new music video.
Good morning, folks. It's Friday, April 12, 2013. Welcome to RenmanMusicandBusiness.com. My name's Steve Rennie, and I am the Renman, and this little program is called Renman Live. Joining us on the show today is my good buddy Marc Geiger, the head of William Morris Endeavor's music department, and also he doubles as the king of rock, I'll have you know. We'll also be speaking with our music mentor contest winner, our pro from Canada, Mr. Andrew Jones, as well. Should be fun. We hope you're enjoying our new website. We got a couple of things. We're obviously working out some kinks and so forth, but we're going to show you a couple new tricks today that we hope will make it a little bit easier for you guys to connect with other members on the site and hopefully make some big things happen here. But first, let me say hello to my ace intern, the lovely and talented Audrey Benoit-Lead. How you doing, Audrey?
I'm really good.
Now, Audrey and I, we're getting ready for our big Coachella Love Fest here, right?
Yeah.
Here's, Audrey looks great. Here's my outfit with the shorts. Audrey thought I looked kind of preppy, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? It works.
Yeah.
It still works.
I call this kind of frat boy chic is how I'm going to go with. The sweater kind of gives it an air of dignity, I hope.
It's very nonconformist.
Yeah, it is very. That's me, Mr. Nonconformist here. So anyway, Audrey, who are you looking forward to seeing here?
Oh my God, so yeah, I'm headed to Coachella after this and I'm really excited. There's so many awesome bands that are playing. The ones that I want to see, actually from Canada, there's Grimes, who I absolutely love. There's Foles, Hot Chip, Beach House, Birdie Nam Nam, James Blake, Knife Party, Local Natives, Major Lazer, Metric.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's a huge list. I'm trying to plan my schedule accordingly.
I want to see the Foles. I want to see the Neighborhood. I want to see XX.
Yes.
I want to see Pretty Lights, although that's going to stretch that Sunday drive home. I downloaded a great app, the Coachella app, so I got all my stuff right there. And the best part of it, Audrey, not to make all of my friends jealous out there, I'm staying with my buddy's house, who's literally right across the street from Coachella. At his place, there's a fine golf course, so I'm going to have a little golf in the morning.
Amazing.
Little Masters on TV, and probably sashay over around 4 o'clock to watch some music here. So anyway, we talked about the website a little bit. I want to give you guys a quick, brief look. Oh, God, I hope I set this up to you. You got me on IVGA? Oh, you do. He's so good. He's so good, folks. All right, let me take you over to our little community, folks. If you've been to our new website, hopefully you've tooled around a little bit. Last week, we put in a little something here called Connections, which allows you to connect with other members on the site. But, we launched the thing probably before it was ready, against the counsel from my developers, but I was getting impatient, so we launched. So we made it easy to go make connections. We didn't make it very easy for you to actually talk to anybody. So we think we've got that sorted out now. You'll notice up top there's a little message button. So now, once you've made a connection with one of the other members on the site, you can now communicate with them. It's still a little rough. It's a little bit better than chalk on a cave wall. Aaron Lack's out there, but we're getting there. I'm just kidding our developer. He hates me now. Anyway, it's a great way for you folks to connect. I want to encourage some connection here from all you folks. It's important stuff, and my next guest is going to be evidence of what the value of making great connections is. So any other thoughts here, Audrey?
Well, I just wanted to remind our members that you should definitely get involved and ask questions. And if you're an advanced planner, as Ren would say, you can always post a question for our guests under on the side where it says submit a question under the live show. Or you can come chat with me, of course, or you can call in if you're very brave. And if you do call in, as you know, you get a beautiful t-shirt.
A fine t-shirt here, the Dream It, Do It, or we actually are out of our Fuck the Gatekeepers, which really kind of we have one. Darren, no, don't throw it. We might need that one. Anyway, it speaks to your mentality out there, folks. We could be dreaming or we could be fucking the gatekeepers. Everybody says, fuck the gatekeepers. All right, enough of that. Audrey, one final thought. I'm looking at you and you look great here today. Why do I think that you are going to get brown this weekend and I'm just going to get red?
Well, I mean, for some of you that don't know, my parents are actually born in Morocco. So, I have that olive tone and I don't really burn. I just get really dark. But, I'll be careful.
I'm going to burn here, folks. You'll see me. I'll be the bald guy with red legs. Okay, stay out of my way. Okay, enough on that. I want to talk today about our guest. We got a great guest today. Our guest is one of my best friends in the whole world, actually. His name is Marc Geiger from the William Morris Endeavor Agency. Marc has always been a lover of music. In fact, he is my favorite rock critic. He has a broad swath of experience as a concert promoter, booking agent, A&R exec, and internet entrepreneur. The word visionary is thrown around way too much in the music business, if you ask me. But if ever there was anybody that was deserving of such a term, it's my friend, Mr. Marc Geiger. He was a part of the founding team of Lollapalooza. He was the architect and founder and visionary behind Artist Direct, one of the earliest efforts to empower artists on the World Wide Web. Under his oversight, the William Morris Endeavor's music agency is changing the way agencies are viewed in today's music business. They really are. When I need an honest opinion, when I need to have somebody get me back on track, Marc's the guy I call. I'm honored to call him a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome my good buddy, Mr. Marc Geigs. Geiger, call him Geigs, or Geigalonius. How you doing, Geigs?
I'm great. Who typed the K?
Oh, the K? What K?
Marc.
Oh, Marc. That was me. Okay, see.
I'm sort of a good friend. 30 years later, he will spell my name correctly.
Well, that was, you know what it is? It's autofill, okay?
I get it.
There's like the way most people spell it, and then there's the sexy.
There's a Marc Geiger works at Bank of America, so maybe you're having him on today.
Might be a good guy to know.
There's also an attorney, Marc Geiger.
Attorney named Marc Geiger?
Yeah.
See, if Geigs and I would have been following our parents' advice, we'd have become a lawyer, right? Like Audrey.
No, doctor.
Oh,
nice
a doctor,
Jewish doctor.
a lawyer. All right, anyway. So I'm so happy to have you on here, and I want to thank you for taking the time. I know that you're a busy man, but I will say I was over at the William Morris office yesterday, and everybody was thanking me for getting you out of the office for an hour, guys. I don't know what that means, but hey. So at any rate, I want to just tell you something. Our show now, we did this way back when I interviewed Geiger in a different incarnation of it, and it was a horrible freaking wreck, frankly. I hope I do better today. We started this website a while back, as you know, and the folks that come to the site, I think we could categorize it in three different ways. They're either aspiring artists and musicians. They are either aspiring music professionals, or they're just lovers of music. So, you and I could go on for days, but I wanted to just kind of speak to all of those constituencies today. The first question I get asked, no matter where I go when I talk to somebody, is how'd you get started in the business? So I'll start with the boring but important one of how did Marc Geiger, number 9 power broker in the whole business, how did you start in the music business, Geigs?
I failed out of pre-med.
There you have it.
So I was in college and basically playing baseball and going to be a nice Jewish doctor. And my friends knew I was more of a music fanatic than I did. So I ended up as a hobby joining the campus record store. It was a co-op, the campus radio station, and the events committee, just for sort of shits and giggles. And little did I know it, I ended up running all of them pretty quickly. And one of them, which was the concert promoting, sort of took off. And it went from college shows to starting our own company with a guy on the baseball team who funded it, said, hey, you're good at this, I'm gonna put up some money. We did 4 shows and they sold out.
Is that Yoke?
No, this is a guy, but he was on the baseball team, but that's funny. No, it was actually a senior, we were freshmen. So it was early, a guy named Rick J. And then Mark Berman, who you remember, had a little bit of a problem in San Diego, and the general manager of 91X, which was a big radio station down there, they were flipping from commercial rock, KLOS, to K-Rock. And they needed people who knew that music. And I was an expert in English indie, all the dark stuff that you know about. And they hired me to go on 91X as the nighttime DJ. The next call I got was, hey, Mark Berman needs somebody. Would you consider talking to him? The guy hired me on the spot. I ended up closing down my little company and working for what at the time was Mark Berman Concerts Avalon Attractions, which is where you and I really met. Yes. And I think that was 1982. And it just took off. And I was in between my sophomore and junior year. I think my junior year I did 100 shows, and my senior year 150 shows. It was stupid. So that's how I fell into it in college.
It's interesting you mention it, because for the folks out here that are starting, you took a tried and true path, similar to Bill Silva's, who was also down in San Diego.
And my predecessor, he was at the same school.
Okay, which is getting on the concert committee, folks. So if you're in college, and we got all these colleges now that are teaching music business classes, and I'll ask these folks, any of you guys on the concert committee? And they all say no. I'm going, what part are you missing? You get to spend somebody else's money, right? I did not know you were a nighttime DJ.
Big time.
There you go.
And I even did KCRW up here for a while with Deirdre O'Donoghue, you may remember. Remember? Before she died.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, I did you may not remember, Paul Sansone was the other nighttime. It was nighttime. I had to drive from UCSD in La Jolla down to Tijuana, drive up the mountain, right? Do the show. It was weekends, 12 to 2. Drive back at 2 in the morning, wait in line, sometimes up to an hour to cross the border, back into San Diego. It was nuts, but when you're a kid, you're thrilled, right? I'm on the air, I'm playing.
You're in the music business.
Import singles by Love and Rockets and, whatever. It was nuts, so it was really fun.
I want to pick up on that. Mark is, I only half kidding around when I say that, Mark has been my favorite rock critic, but also, frankly, my greatest resource to fast track me on trying to get hip in the music business, right? I want to tell a funny story. We were playing Primal Scream on the way into the show, along with one of Mark's favorites, Cocteau Twins, who I always beat up on, but I remember Liz Fraser was a lovely, lovely lady. I used to go up to Geiger's houses on the weekends, and there's a song on that Primal Scream record. What was it called? Loaded?
Well, that was the album, yeah.
Oh, that was the album. That was also typically our condition.
Well, no, wait a minute. Screamadelica was the record. So
yeah, Screamadelica was Loaded, wasn't it?
Maybe you're right.
Yeah, Loaded was on there. Look at I'm giving it.
You're probably right.
But we used to go up to Geiger's house, and I'd go up there on Saturdays, and I would get to Geiger's place, and he'd have a table in his living room that had hundreds of CDs, Audrey, stacked on this place, right? And Geiger had a notepad, and he's a big list keeper, this guy. He's keeping all his lists. And I thought today, as I was preparing for the show, how interesting that was in the concept that you were the first curator I knew, but I just called you a rock critic. You were the first guy putting together playlists, but we just called them Geiger's freaking list. And you were also the guy that was sharing and allowing people like me to be much hipper than we imagined.
And DJing, same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure. That's really served you well in the business, that music. What is it that makes you so obsessive about knowing every band in the world?
I don't know the answer to that question. What I will
but
tell
you will confess to that, would you not?
Totally. Okay. And what I will tell you is if I grab my BlackBerry, and people freak out at this, they say, hey, what do you like? What are you listening to? I think I have 20 years of best ofs in a list called best ofs, right? And it's from probably 88 or 90 onwards. And at a snapshot, I can roll down and see what the best records of the year were at any point in time, right? I also have a list of records to listen to, and it's a long list. So I'll read a Pitchfork review, I'll read an All Music Guide review, I'll hear about something, and I immediately add it to the list. And then I'll go to my Sonos and I'll build playlists, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is I'm not pushing them out to people yet. Mm-hmm. And half of it is discovery, and then the next part would be, these are the good ones, right? And listen to these. So curation's sort of not gotten all the way to where it needs to get to, mm-hmm. but the power of being able to filter music and then turn people onto it is huge.
Yeah.
And the tools are here now.
Yeah, it's
almost
interesting.
Here,
we had Tom Windish, one of your contemporaries, who was on the show last week. And Tom told the story about how he would just take on bands based on recommendations from friends, right? And one of our members, I think it might have been Andrew Jones or somebody, or Cody Ramos, that thought how they were intrigued by that whole concept that somebody might take on a client just based on somebody's opinion. But the truth is, that's how it really works in the business, right? I love music, but you were listening to the Cocteau Twins and 100 Hours. I was listening to the Rolling Stones and Van Halen, but hanging out with you made it easier for me to say yes.
And your management career, I think, now I definitely remember the,
yes.
okay? I thought the Wonder stuff too. all right? But maybe
No,
not.
the Wonder Stuff was
Through somebody else.
Ian Wilson.
Okay, fine.
The was definitely yours. Primal Scream was definitely yours.
So, turning people on to music and then even pushing them to take on clients, whether it was Windish or was you, right, 20-something years ago, it's part of how the world works.
It's funny, when I was a concert promoter, I started off, and Geiger transitioned from concert promoter to agent, and I went from college booker to college, or to working at Avalon Attractions. And remember when you called me up about a band called Japan at the Wiltern Theater? Tell her the story of how you used to treat me, guys.
And Dead Can Dance.
And Dead Can Dance, yes.
So I called Rennie up, if I remember correctly, this is a long time ago, and I'm getting old. And there were two artists that I was madly in love with: Dead Can Dance on 4AD, Japan, which was David Sylvian's. It was actually David Sylvian, because Japan had broken up.
Yes.
And David Sylvian had made his first solo record, and he was the lead singer of Japan. This is pre-Duran Duran. He was the prettiest man in the world, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he was awesome. So I call Rennie up, and I go, Ren, so-and-so, Dead Can Dance, da-da-da-da, David Sylvian, Wiltern, da-da-da. He's like, Geigs, I don't know who this is. I said, you're doing it. Just shut up, send me the offer. It's 20 grand, send it, don't talk to me, it'll sell out. And
it did, but I had to go and tell my boss, who reckoned I was quite the opinionated guy myself. And he goes, Rennie, I never heard of this band. And I go, well, it's this guy, David Sylvian. He goes, I never freaking heard of him either. And he goes, why are you booking this? And I had to basically say, because it was just easier to say yes, Murph. And by the way, it sold out, okay?
Amazing.
So after a few of those, I trusted Geiger
Two
deeply.
sellouts, Dead Can Dance at the Wadsworth.
I admit it. And then he introduced me to all these people. I used to kid that I felt like an insurance salesman sitting around Geiger when we'd go out to network together. I felt like, geez, okay, I shouldn't even be here. Anyway, it worked out okay. Let me talk about something else real quick. This idea of mentoring, right? In imparting knowledge from one generation to the next is an important one. Talk about, did you have any mentors early in your careers that helped shape this Geiger guy I know?
Well, I actually think mentoring is, in some ways, the meaning of life, actually. All right? So I'm not sure there's anything actually more important, because when you look for, what are you doing in your life, giving back ultimately is really the only thing that matters, frankly, because you're an influencer, right? So I think it's more important than you're even saying, but there you go. For me, it was probably Bill Graham and Gary Kurfirst. I wish there were more, especially in my direct line of employment. I think I had friends that influenced me too, like Rick Rubin and other people like that. But I think Bill Graham, when I was a young guy in Palo Alto before college, was my idol, right? Because I had 2 years in the Bay Area, and he was larger than life, right? And you loved him and blah, blah, blah. And his ethic, his consumer care, his larger-than-life sort of showmanship in a lot of ways that I wasn't a larger-than-life showman, but I appreciate what he was doing, and he was moving the ball forward in rock and roll and other things. And even the little things that I remember that he used to do. And I got to meet him then at Keystone Palo Alto. Then we became friendly because of my background, his background, both European immigrants. And he kind of mentored me, and he'd invite me up to Telluride to go skiing at his house, and it was amazing. And then Gary Kurfirst was probably, for me, the most important manager in rock.
Tell people who he is, because I think a lot
Gary
of folks
Kurfirst
know
was a New York-based manager in the late 60s and 70s. His first group was Mountain with Leslie West.
No way.
I swear to God. Mississippi Queen, baby. But he then went on to manage The Clash, The Talking Heads, The Ramones, The B-52s.
Oh my God.
Oh, no, a lot more. And Blondie. I mean, a whole bunch, right? And he had the creme de la creme of important rosters. And I looked at this guy and said, wow. And he ended up doing Jane's Addiction. He was one of Jane's Addiction's first managers in the day, right? Nothing shocking. And you might want to just put it on silent.
That's Geiger's phone going off here.
So the bottom line of that was he was somebody I admired. When I got to know him, I admired him even more because his ethic was long-term, artist development, all of the things that the rest of the industry didn't care about, right? Mm-hmm. They cared, even at that time, and it was less than it was in the last 10 years, take money off the table, get rich quick, milk it. He was Mr. Career, Mr. Important, and he taught things that I felt in my gut were right, and he was echoing it. Mm-hmm. So they were real big influences on me.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and it's funny, I was watching yesterday the Masters golf tournament. This guy, I'm a big golf fan, and what was amazing is they have this tournament where it's not necessarily the biggest greatest field in the world. Obviously some of the top guys, but they allow the past champions to continue to play. There was a great story of a young 14-year-old Chinese kid who was playing in the Masters at 14. Okay, I started when I was 14. And they had this great, the sequence of him going out and playing with Tom Watson, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and Ben Crenshaw yesterday, right?
It's all
and there was this cross-generational exchange of information and knowledge, right? That was just, even if you're not a golfer, it's at the core of what you just said. That sharing is what it's really all about, and I'm glad that you shared that with us. Okay, now we got a bunch of people that I can see are on the chat room. I can tell when we got a lively guest, so I'm going to get off script here. Let's take one from the chat room here, Audrey. Let me check.
You want a question from the chat room?
Yeah, let's go chat room first.
Okay, cool. Well, Ryan had a question, perhaps for those who want to be an agent. What does Marc look for in a new agent, and what does he advise new agents to look for in artists at WME?
What do I look for in new agents? Hustle, entrepreneur, couple things. Do they have musical knowledge, or are they just salesmen, right? Because one of the things that you want to find are people with strong opinions that are well researched and based in showing that they care about their craft. I'd say that's one thing. An ability to communicate well, an ability to show initiative, which I think is huge. But in our place, and Rennie knows the story of the William Morris Agency and all how we got to today, but it's a storied, famous training program. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing is, I don't really have to look for anybody. They come into the training program, which is like a college, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a pro advanced course, and I get to watch, it was golf, I get to watch all the golfers play for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And I get to see how they're growing, their evolution, how they do among their peers, et cetera, et cetera. So what I look for in that group is the same thing. Who has what I call anticipatory knowledge, which is instead of waiting to be told something, they go out and read everything and say, hey, should I be doing this? Do you think it's a good idea if I did that? And they're adding value constantly. And if they can do that, that's an innate skill, which really is a winning skill that you need to possess. Yeah. So that's part of the requirements that I look for. So it's all of that. On the other hand, if they go out, and this is what happened with me, and instead of coming in through the traditional channel, go out and make something of themselves in another marketplace, which is sometimes easier, a secondary market, a town in Illinois, Tampa, Florida, wherever it is, and you have a point of view and you go out as a promoter, if you go out as a manager of an artist, it could be anything else, and you're doing really well, I'll probably see it, and I'll go, wow, that young person's doing something fantastic. They might make a great agent, and look at them that way too. So there's a few points of entry, but that's what I'd say are the ways I look.
I call it killer instinct.
There you go.
That's what it is. And
Another
by
word.
the way, that I am and
happy, research.
Yeah, well, you got to do your homework.
That's
as part of
right.
having
That's
killer
right.
instinct.
That's
You got to
right.
know where to shoot.
That's right.
Okay, and I've been the happy beneficiary of the fruits of that William Morris boot camp. Mr. Joe Lilac over here is the guy who makes it literally all happen here.
Lilac or Lilac?
I
thought it was always
Lilac. Lilac. He's from Cleveland.
I got told
okay,
twice.
There's no guy named Lilac in Cleveland.
I thought it was Lilac always. Lilac or whatever.
All right, let me take I want to reward folks. Can you come on the network there for a second, D? Well, I had my whole script, but you guys have better questions. We talk about it a lot here, folks. Joe, do you have our favorite slogan teed up there?
I got a bunch of them.
How about the one that I go, you don't ask, you don't get, right? There it is. Okay, ready? You don't ask. Oh, geez. Okay, we had all these today.
That was the sound without
skip it. Okay, anyway, thanks for showing all our neat tricks to Geiger here. Okay, anyway, we have a saying called you don't ask, you don't get. Anyway, we're back to here. I used to caddy for a little old lady at Hillcrest Country Club, Charlotte Alice. I've told the story a million times. She goes, Stevie, you don't ask, you don't get, right? And it's stuck with you. It's great advice. Anyway, we give you lots of ways to ask questions, and the best one is to come in, be an advanced planner, as Audrey identified, and put your question up here, and we will try to answer it. So today I'm going to ask less questions and let our members ask. Here's one of the questions we've got here. It's about the agency business again. Will booking agencies like, it's from Armin Exchange is his name. Will booking agencies like WME ever offer tour support for artists? I found it interesting backwards that labels pay tour support as a marketing cost instead of agencies whose bread and butter is tour dollars. Interesting take on things. Your thoughts?
I think that's a really smart question because you're right. Agencies should have done it. I do it. We do it. We fund bands quite often as they need. It's really a loan in advance against stuff. But in the old days, they didn't. So you're right. And their bread was buttered on the touring side. What's additionally silly about the labels doing it is they didn't have touring rights or touring revenue at the time, right? This is when it was standard record deals. And now in a more all rights / 360 environment, it makes a little more sense, right? Because you get all revenue streams. You're building an artist, you're the financier behind the artist. So the label tour support relationship actually makes more sense today than it did in the old days. So good question. Agents should do it, but in a lot of cases, agents are pussies, all right? And agencies are real wusses in terms of business. They're service people, so your doctor doesn't offer you an advance, your banker doesn't offer you an advance or a loan. There's no rights, and the reason agencies didn't do it is because they could get fired tomorrow, okay? Usually no contracts.
Yeah.
It's a service business.
Yeah,
right?
it is a service.
And when you have no protection and no security, you don't put money up, all right? Now you could say, hey, you could get them to sign papers, you could get them to treat as a loan, and that's what they did. It was just the exception rather than the rule. So the answer to your real question is it's a service business, all right? And there are no rights, and you are fireable. That being said, we do it, but it speaks to the core of the contractual relationship.
And even then, I presume that you're making that quote-unquote advance loan against the commissions that are going to be generated from a tour that's probably right in front of you or in the very near future.
Or you know it's going to happen.
Or
Yeah, you're measuring your risk, okay, including your risk of getting fired, okay?
Yeah.
And not getting, and having to have a collectible
Can I
issue.
just add something? You said contractual relationship, but from what I've gathered, there actually is no written contract often between artists.
That's what I said.
You said there was?
You missed it. I said there's none.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Okay, that is the problem.
That's
yeah,
one
there's
of the
nothing
problems.
written down.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
no, I said that earlier to say you're completely naked, right? It's like hiring a service guy. You don't even get, you don't even get a piece of paper signed. So that's part of it. They're all solvable issues, and agencies should have capital funds available. I have one. I've made it that part of the business. So there you go.
Well, I want to come back to that because the agency business rather than an individual agency, because you are singularly responsible in some ways in pushing the window on what an agent it is, and we'll come back to that one. I want to switch gears for a second. We have you are one of these guys that's been at the forefront of technology. Again, not to reminisce here, but Marc Geiger is the guy that really literally showed me what the real internet was. And this was back in what, 94 or something? Probably after you got through showing me your 100 records, you said, oh, did I mention this thing called the internet, right? And there wasn't even a web browser. I think it was a message board. And
the web browser hit in '94 as Mosaic.
It was Mosaic exactly. So anyway, you've been at the forefront of that, and in this whole idea of empowering artists with technology. We have a question here, and I'm going to lead into a gentleman by the name of Moses Jamplify. We have him on the line. Moses is a great guy I met down at South by Southwest. First time I've been down there, and I have been enamored with all these great new tools that you have for artists to communicate with their fans, or in fact, somebody that has something to communicate and somebody to listen. So Moses has a question for you, but first I promised I'd introduce him to some big players. This is about as big as it gets, Moses. Are you there?
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back on the show.
I have to tell you a funny story here. My inexperience at South by Southwest, right? I asked Joe to book me some meetings. Now, I'm up at the crack of dawn here. So the first guy I'm meeting is Moses Soyula at 8:30 in the freaking morning, right? And so I'm looking around, there's nobody. It's like a freaking ghost town here, Geiger. And this poor bastard, sorry, Moses got walking in. I'm thinking, oh, geez, this probably wasn't a great idea getting these guys out of bed. Anyway.
Well, before you even went, the first time to South by?
My first time to South by.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, Moses, I will apologize in public for getting you out of bed that early in the morning. Have a go at Marc Geiger here.
Hey, Mark, it's good to meet you. I'm glad Steve could have me on. To make the introduction.
Go ahead.
Good to be back.
I'm all yours.
Yeah, so, you're one of the sort of early innovators in the industry, what with your work at Artist Direct, and as the music industry has begun to start to embrace digital, there's now a much richer data set to determine where an artist should tour, and you're not just relying on how many seats they've sold in the past, but now you have data such as zip codes tied to email addresses, YouTube views, social media subscribers. How do you prioritize these sources of data specifically for booking purposes?
Good question, very relevant right now. There's companies from Big Champagne, which used to analyze, network node, MP3 traffic, peer-to-peer traffic. Next Big Sound, which is measuring Facebook, tweets, retweets, likes, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. We're at an early phase of big data analysis. We built our own thing internally. We had the trainees do it, but just like we talked about, mentoring. We have a group of advanced assistants called trainees. And their project right now is to build data analytics called the WME Buzz, where we plug in an artist we think something's happening on, and we can see its score week to week of its rate of increase, how it's indexing, et cetera. The overall answer to your question is it's really early in data analysis. We've been watching it since sort of mp3.com and even before that. I'm not sure anybody knows yet the importance and the weighting of each piece, right? A video like versus a Facebook ad versus, because right now none of them mean purchase per se. All right, so the first thing, Moses, is it's early phase, and you got to look at this as a 5, 10-year, 20-year understanding of what's going on, and I think that's the first thing you got to do. Geo, which is what you're talking about, right? For tour information, email addresses, we did a long time ago. I'm not sure they correlate yet correctly, all right? That you have X amount of emails. There's too many other variables. If an artist put out a bad record, if they raise their ticket price, are they playing a venue you don't like, whatever it is that can really throw a monkey wrench into what the statistics say. And so what's happening, and all kinds of things, by the way, festival appearances. So I think, and we've had a lot of those tools for a long time. So right now, the irony is there's multiple sets of data points. There's the actual big data analytics that you can scrape and look at. And then there's gut reaction. Then there's talking to the local promoter and the blogger in town and the radio station guy. And if there's
old school networking.
If there's a record store still in play, or even the kids in the office, right? And you'd be shocked that the actual, what Rennie might call the old school analytics, are as on point as the new school ones, because there's too much data and we don't know which one's important yet. So I think, Moses, it's going to come. There's predictive software that says, oh, this song has this kind of chorus in it, it should be a hit. But it's not, and they've sold those things and touted them for a long time. So I'd say this is a wait and watch. This is a watch, listen, and learn as people develop better interface, as they develop which statistics are more important and not important. And it's going to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years the way I look at it. But we use all these things actively. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, our company Jamplify is going to add to that data set, so even more data to look at for you and hopefully be part of the conversation.
Yeah, let me just bring up one funny thing. I'm on the board of a bunch of tech companies because it's my passion and a hobby, and one of them is called Tastemaker X, and it does more of a gamified app. Sort of fantasy football meets the stock exchange for artists, okay? And it gives them sort of a stock price, call it a T-score. And, they have a big show at South by Southwest, their score goes up, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And between that and Next Big Sound, they're tracking, 40 different data points. And at least it's gamified, but what you'll find in these things, because it's really your social graph of what you're sharing and what you care about, is the evolution of people's social graph is confused. And it's too much too soon. And I'm not sure, even the companies that I'm involved with or that I look at on a regular basis, that I can trust enough of what's going on. All right, Grimes, you talked about, by the way, Hot Chip, Major Lazer, and Foles were in South America, and they killed it, and I hung with all of them. But that being said, a festival appearance, it's hard to wait. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll give an example.
As opposed to a headline gig of yours.
No, both. But I just came back from South America. I was telling the story before we started. We had 2 Lollapaloozas we launched down there a couple of years ago. They're now enormous. So when the Queens of the Stone Age go on with their new album, and they're already big, or even a developing artist, Major Lazer, and they have a big set, okay? And I watch 40,000 people go absolutely bonkers. That is hard to quantify, all right? Now, you will get a bounce from that. You'll get a reaction of tweets, posts, blah, blah, blah. But there's no context to the posts. It's pure numbers. So, okay, 2,000 people tweeted after that, after 40,000 people said. What did they tweet?
Yeah.
Doesn't get measured, okay?
Yeah.
Is it best band I've ever seen? Or was it disappointment they didn't play their hit? So there's a lot in this that people have to understand.
I'll give you an interesting example of that, Geigs. You know, Mikey, our friend Marc Geiger, has been working with Avicii and Mac Davis. Avicii's looking to do some things that go, frankly, beyond what would be expected from an EDM artist. They go and play down here at Ultra Music Fest in Miami and debut some of this new stuff. And they got a ton of tweets, but to your point, if you were just looking for activity, it looks like a volcano erupted. If you're Avicii, he was probably feeling a little sensitive that night because at the very least, you'd walk out of there thinking, okay, be careful about debuting brand new stuff that's not been worked in front of 80,000 people that are on, you know, they're flying on something, and you coming in there and doing something edgy and cool may not have been the right answer. So anyway, it's interesting to see all these. What was interesting also for me, Moses, is that we had on the show Mike Karen from Warner Brothers the other day. And there's a whole new different breed of cat coming into the business now, Geiger, that have a whole different frame of reference. He didn't have Billboard magazine. He didn't have his BDS. He had a couple flat panel screens up there trying to get a handle on this new dashboard, you know, control panel to see how the score is going. And I think that as all these things develop, Moses, having some great information in as much of it as you can is great, but I think it's always going to be the music business, guy, because it's a gut feeling. They can't algorithm whether something makes a connection with people or not.
I think that's part of it, but I think the bigger rule is data gets interpreted, and it becomes information. Information gets interpreted, and it becomes contextual, okay? And contextual data gets put into relevance, all right? And there are 4 steps, and this is sort of famous tech knowledge. And I'm not sure we're at the relevance place yet in terms of interpreting the data.
All right, here's a question I just saw that came in. Okay, Moses, I'm going to let you go back to building that business of yours. And again, next time we meet, you tell me when, okay?
By the way,
I'll be in LA next month, actually, so I'd love to get together with you guys when I'm there.
All right, perfect. Thanks for having us, Moses. Jamplify.com, folks. Great product. We used it. It helped us, get our fan base energized. I loved it. Okay, Audrey, you have another question there?
Yeah, well, I mean, on this tech, we have a question from Ryan Hagan about innovation. So as an innovator in the industry and someone who's always embraced technology, what are your thoughts on the new platforms such as Eventlight that are working to bring live music experience beyond venues as exclusive content? Basically like live streaming and concerts. He wants to know what you think.
Well, there's chats, there's live concerts, there's intimate performances, Stage It, et cetera, et cetera. I think they're ancillary, 2 things. One, they serve the core. There's multiple audiences for artists. There's the hardcore fan, there's the interested fan, there's the casual fan, there's the whatever. And when you graph these things out, they look like, you can look at them like circles. So this is the core, right? Number 1 that you're serving, and the core needs more programming. So number 1, it's a good thing because the core needs to be serviced. I don't believe that these things are huge and are life-changing, but I do think they are part of a connection toolkit, all right? And when you're connecting to your audience in various ways, all right, the intimate live performance from some club or the balcony sessions or whatever it is, because a bunch of people are doing this, it's part of it. Now, one is how do you measure when people are sick of it and how many times would you ever go see an artist, no matter what? Mm-hmm. Even if there's 6 people in a chat room and they're playing to you, okay? Mm-hmm. So there's all those things you got to look at. I think they're hard to monetize, although people are charging for intimate performances and some people are making money. I find it just as exciting when people are going and playing in people's living rooms or in their backyards for money. It's the same thing to me, but there's more of a human connection. I think performance has historically lacked on YouTube and other mediums because performance is about the energy in the community in the room and community with others in the room, right? It's a really real-time social platform. So I think they're good. I just don't think they scale that much.
Yeah.
So that's the answer. Right? But I think they're tchotchkes, they're ancillaries.
Here's what I think is interesting about it from my perspective. When you're starting off particular, the cost of touring is prohibitive in a lot of cases. If you're an existing artist, take Brandon Boyd, for example, who's putting out a solo record. The ability to do a concert and conceive it and produce it and do it in a way that is 100% your vision is not something that you and I grew up in the business. We had to go to MTV, we had to go here and there. It was always in their context. What I love about the live streaming things is that it makes location a non-issue in a lot of ways, so that somebody in Indonesia or somebody down in South America can be a part of an event.
For sure.
Like the Incubus HQ Live.
For sure.
And there are tools built around it, the instant Twitter feeds and so forth, that give you as close as you're going to get a sense of actually being in the room. And to me, that is a powerful change from what you and I grew up with.
Well, you and I did it, okay? So at Artist Direct, we had, and Incubus was one of the first ones that did it, right?
They were.
And Rennie was one of the heads of this. We had a studio in E-Television. We produced what's called fan conferences, which, by the way, is almost exactly what we're doing right now.
Yes.
Okay? Almost exact. With the
So
chat,
I haven't come up with any
the
new
chat.
ideas.
So, first of all, to all you guys out there, and I don't know who's watching, we did this in 98, 99, 2000.
Yeah.
So we haven't come that far. And I don't mean that in a bad way, right? Because we had Metallica, we had Beck, we had the Foo Fighters, we had Incubus in a room bigger than this, 100
Not
people.
much bigger, yeah.
100 people, state-of-the-art, blah, 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 performances, Q&A. I don't know that they grew Metallica or Beck's audience, frankly. I think for a developing artist, listen to Duke, I think for a developing artist, it's helpful. I think for a kid who lives in Santiago, Chile, who may not be able to see an artist who can't afford to get there, it's good, right? But there's a huge energy lack in those things.
Yeah.
That through the pipes, through the bandwidth, into a browser, into a video player,
Let's let Duke in here. Okay, this is, folks, if
I think
you're
he needs
wondering.
to come on the couch or
Yeah,
something.
he needs to come on the couch. Dude, come on here,
Dude.
take up your spot. He's pissed, you know?
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, go back to it, I think the thing everybody has to realize is the medium, the live medium is certainly a different medium than a visual medium for a video or even a chat, okay?
Yeah.
And these things are supportive and they build to a live experience as well. So I'm not minimizing it, and there are total advantages, like you say, but I do think you got to keep it in context that people have been doing these things for a long time. They haven't changed that world.
I think you said it best. It's a tool.
That's right.
It's not the steak, it's the steak sauce. And there's another way to give you some ways to connect that you can control.
Part
I
of
think
the
that's the biggest
connection
part.
toolkit.
Pardon us, folks, today.
Yeah, Rennie can't control the studio down here. It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
He's not really, he doesn't have it together. But here's the thing. You got to look at it as a connection toolkit because there's a performance. But if somebody gets an email from somebody, okay, or chats with them, or anything, right? I saw this morning, this is a great example, and I shouldn't have watched it, but I did, and it was fantastic, okay? There's an article in the LA Times about Joe Jonas,
Oh, really?
and it's fascinating. Now, I'm not a Jonas Brothers fan.
No.
Okay? Exactly. That being said, some girl at Pepperdine made a YouTube video inviting Joe Jonas to her prom, formal.
This already happened.
No, hear me out. This just happened.
Okay.
So she did it, she sent it to Joe Jonas, all right? And it's cute, and I happen to watch it, but the major press, the LA Times wrote about it because Joe Jonas did a rebuttal video. And his video back to her is fantastic. It's
Is
LA
he
Times.
blowing her off or accepting?
No, it's genius. It's like a Saturday Night Live sketch. And it's so well produced back to her. And he invites her to he can't go to the prom, but to the opening of the concert. That's a connection too.
Yeah.
It's a highly stylized, produced piece by Joe Jonas. It's something Justin Timberlake would have done with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
All right, exactly. And it shows Joe Jonas's sense of humor, frankly.
Yeah.
And it shows his connectivity to a random inquiry from a fan. That's a connection too.
Yeah.
I would argue that and the ripple effect from that 10 times more than a Joe Jonas live show.
Oh, no,
and it
no
was
question.
because it's really good.
Yeah.
And so what people have to understand in terms of this medium, there's so much noise out there, there's so many shows, and they can be commoditized, right? And you can do 10 performances. But that one, if you look at it, not only got noise in the LA Times and Google News and blah, 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 it becomes real content that other fans want to watch because it's cute. It's not just a show, right?
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to watch it because it's another form of the connection toolkit. And people haven't done this that often.
Oh, well, because they didn't have the option.
It's really good.
They didn't have it in their head that they could do it, I think, in some ways, you know. But it's what I call the personalization of the music business. You and I would hang out in front of the Hyatt and hope that maybe we ran into Jimmy Page. We had no shot. The best thing the Jonas Brothers have done in freaking years here.
Exactly. And it's funny. So this guy, Joe Jonas, whoever did it, okay?
Yeah.
And Justin Timberlake's great at this too, right?
God.
I mean, he's fantastic at it. The fact that they're producing content for this pipeline, right, which is an audience channel. This is what Artist Direct was trying to do, right? Nobody could imagine that what really would happen would be that an artist might actually take it on their own, not only talk to a fan in a chat session, but look at that, a highly stylized produced piece, tongue-in-cheek, funny as shit, all right? He's wearing a Ricky Bobby Talladega Nights suit, going into, you know, this fake dinner with this girl that's not there. It's genius.
By
the way, I think that'll do more for him as it gets around than a new music video.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Justin Timberlake. I remember the first time I watched, you know, I remember taking one of my kids, you know, I won't embarrass Matt Rennie by telling everybody he went to an NSYNC concert. It was more
It was
screaming.
The Clash. Just kidding.
You know, it was horrible. But then I remember seeing Justin Timberlake on Saturday Night Live that he was, you know, going to be the host, and I pretty much hated freaking NSYNC. And I saw him on that show, right? And I wanted to hate him so badly,
He's
right?
great.
And I thought, this guy's fucking great. And now I watched him again for his umpteenth time. He's become like a white Sammy Davis of the freaking music business, right? And I just love it. And he plays golf. Christ, I will. Okay,
He owns a golf course.
Oh, I know.
Hang on. And he did Dick in a Box. Maybe one of the greatest videos ever.
Dick in a Box?
You haven't seen
okay.
Oh, my God.
On SNL?
Rennie, Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
God, okay.
he has a...
All right, well, don't search that one. We got a guy who's been... Okay, we'll come back to that. We're running way over line. By the way, Ted Cohn, if you're out there watching, I didn't think anybody... No,
I'm
sorry.
not even close.
We were kidding this morning, Teddy, about, you know, rolling. We're going to go a little long unless you have to go back to work. We did a music mentor contest a while back. I want to talk and plug you in to a little promotion we did. There's a gentleman in Canada. I'll just play the intro there. We ran this little promotion, right? It's called Music Mentor. I agreed to mentor one young artist and one young professional. We had our artists on Wednesday, a group called Aloha Radio. Andrew Jones is from Canada, Alberta, Canada. He's quite the manager. He's quite the promoter. And we promised that we would invite him into our conversation. So we have Andrew here, I think, on Skype today. He's from Canada. You know, is he there?
Yeah, hey.
Oh, there he is. Hey, how you doing here? Please, there you go. Sing it, Audrey from Montreal.
No, I'm not singing
Oh, Canada! All right.
Love it.
All right, enough of that. We love you up there in Canada. Hey! All right, nice to have you. Meet Mr. Marc Geiger here, Andrew.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good, Andrew. How about yourself?
So we're talking about that whole idea of connection here, Andrew, and I'll take note that Andrew's in his basement, which I think is, you know, kind of from a metaphorical point of view is perfect, right? To get closer to his internet connection. Now we'll talk about personal connection. I told Andrew that, you know, we've been talking about, he manages a couple bands. I'll let him tell you about it. But I told him, I said, you got a guy like Marc Geiger on the couch. You're sitting with us here virtually speaking. While it may not be quite as good, it's pretty close. So I wanted to have you meet Marc and talk about your bands a little bit and see if you can pick his brain a little bit. You okay with that, guys?
Go.
Fire away, Andrew.
Awesome. All right. I'll kind of give you the rundown of both bands and then just kind of chat about a couple questions I had and what your approach would be, if that's cool.
Go.
All right. So my first band is a band called Tasman Jude. They're actually a reggae band out here from Alberta. The one guy's originally from Trinidad, so it's pretty legit reggae. It's not just Canadian. But they're a young band, like only... honestly, like 3 months old, but they had a lot of buzz going, and we're already moving kind of 100 to 200 tickets locally. So the plan is to take that provincial and then Western Canada, and then big enough that we can play a decent showcase at CMW next May is kind of the plan with them. Then my other band it's an artist by the name of Luke Dowler, and when we're out on the road, it's Luke Dowler and the Savage Gentleman. we've been playing like 100 to 120 dates for about 3 years now. I started out booking for them because I was a booking agent, but then I started doing more management, so we moved into management. And after I've talked to Steve and a few other people, it's become super obvious that the next step is I need to get on with a good agent and kind of free me up to focus on some stuff rather than spending my days cold calling venues and, doing that. So without a ton of presumption from my side on how to handle that, I'd just love to hear from you kind of what you think the best way to get an agent is. We're on a small label, making a radio push in the fall, obviously playing a lot of dates for a few years, great live band, always get great feedback from promoters and venues. So how would you suggest kind of approaching, pitching, and selling that to, let's say, an agency like yours or whatever agency? But
yeah, I think for both your bands, probably a Canadian agency is the place to start.
Sorry, not to interrupt. Just so you know, Luke is actually based in Montana, not Canada.
Okay, but his market, to your point, at the moment is Canada, right? And
we play the States more. We come
all right, fine.
And for like a week or two a year.
Okay, got it. And the indie label's distributing the record in both territories?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, it's not easy, and just like it's not easy to get a record deal,
Sure.
it's not easy to get other professionals to believe in an artist before it happens. So, there's the standard way, shop your tape, send your music out in links to people that are targeted, people who have like artists. If it's reggae, you have a Brian Edelman at our place, you have people at the agency group who book reggae bands, et cetera, et cetera. You have Aaron Pincus who does Slightly Stupid and some of those types.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is to narrow, just like you'd apply to colleges, if you have a specialty you're going to major in, you look for the schools that have those programs. You don't just wide blast everybody, because you look for specialists. So I would find, if it was me, I'd step A, shop the music with story, with press, with whatever, to those specialty agents, and I'd have the promoters that actually had great experiences, whether it's selling tickets or great shows, follow up with those agents, all right, and create some hype. Number two, I'd probably target artists for support that those agents booked already, beg to get on those shows, beg to have them come down and watch them earlier, right, and take it on. And then, obviously, marketing the record, which is equally hard, right? Look for a breakout marketplace, whether it's Calgary, whether it's Moose Jaw, I don't really care where it is. Obviously, the bigger the market, the better. And try and create a local story where people start talking about the artist and create a I gotta have it moment for your artists, all right? And unfortunately, you gotta keep pounding your head on these strategies until you get somebody, all right? There's another way to do it, which is next to impossible, which is to figure out some rich guy who has capital and buy your way into an agency, and pay somebody. And usually only small agents do that kind of stuff because they need the revenue, but that's a way to get started too, all right? So that's sort of the answers. There's not that many more. I wish there was.
So would that be like a pay-to-play tour, or literally just, hey, I'll pay you X to sign the band?
Hey, I'll pay you X, I'll give
Is
you
it
10
advance on your commissions, or
basically
just pay?
against commissions. But, baby bands like that don't generate that many commissions.
Yeah.
And Andrew knows this because he knows how hard it is to sell them and get $150 a night or whatever it is. It's not going to pay, $15, it doesn't cover the phone bill. So, let alone the time and the effort. I'm not saying that's really the great sustainable way to do this, and certainly not the way you would like to have it done. But in answering all your questions, trying to be methodical about the answers, that would be one of them.
Okay, so like if you hear a great band, obviously you're a guy who goes out and looks for solid talent. If there's a band that maybe you weren't ready to sign, but you like their tunes, is it something you'd consider throwing them on a tour package ahead of time?
Sure.
Or do you much need to be on the roster?
No, we do this all the time, and we do it in scale. Right?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people combing for stories, for interesting artists, for buzz. And like the data question before, there's a lot of tentacles you have out feeling out different data sources, right? Whether it's some guy you trust calling you, say, that band's hot, whether it's Pitchfork who wrote an early review, whatever it might be. And and a lot of times your pre-commitment, you want to test it. The first thing is, hey, I want to see your band play live. So you'll arrange a showcase in LA and New York, and you get your agents down to see it, blah, blah, blah. So the answer is yes.
Okay. And then I guess that's the other, you already kind of answered that. So, all right. So is it basically all based on your internal people finding buzz, or do cold pitches mean anything to you?
Cold pitches usually are the lowest odds of succeeding. It's like the demo tape that goes into the demo bin and never gets listened to. So I would do everything I could to avoid that. It's just too low odds that somebody's going to pick up on it and actually listen. I think you got to be smart on who is making the recommendation or what source, and that's part of curation, filtering, everything else.
Okay. So you're better off to work on generating kind of those buzz with the right people, and then take that to someone rather than just...
I got a question for you that comes up frequently. Andrew lives in Alberta, Canada, right? How important is it, Geigs, in your opinion, for somebody that's looking to make an impact to be where the fish are in a big music market like New York, Nashville, LA, Austin, perhaps?
It's the same answer as what I said about getting started in your career. There's multiple paths, right? You jump into the pool where all the competition is. You better swim faster than the rest of the fishes, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to make a mark in a less crowded market and get noticed. There's less hands screaming for food. You know, that's how I did it. I did it in San Diego. It's not that far from LA, but had I come to LA and been fighting against you, Garano, Andy Hewitt, whoever as a promoter,
you were in college, to be fair about it.
No, but it doesn't really matter.
What
I'd say is, I made it in San Diego, and I was a big fish in a smaller pond. The big pond get noticed is another strategy. I think both are valid. All right. I think you just got to recognize which one you are, and there's different strategies in each. Right. Because if you are in a small pond and you get successful, then you have to deploy strategies to get yourself noticed. So that's different. There are different kinds of notice strategies than when you're in the mailroom in WME and you want someone else to know. So they're both valid.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew, any other questions while we got Mr. Geiger here?
Those are kind of the ones I had prepped. I kind of wondered, I mean, when you were talking earlier about the curation in your lists and stuff, you know, if you did plan on putting those out for the general public on like a Spotify list or RDO list or something at some point, if that's something you just like to pass on to friends.
I should actually, and
we'll be happy to help you put a few up here for our listeners.
should. I never really think of myself as a public figure or a leader that way. I'm in the business. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of artist friends. You know, the funny thing about being successful in the business is, it's weird because you kind of become a quasi-public figure, right?
Yeah.
But leave that aside. There's a bigger issue, which is the era. I used to call it the age of trusted filters and playlists. I used to tell this to Rennie all the time. You know, that's going to come to where, you know, people share their Spotify playlists now, but if you're a Rhapsody member or an RDO member, maybe you don't get it. It doesn't ingest as easily. You got to manage your playlist a certain way. It's all coming. The answer is I should. Okay, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Frankly, I'd like them to be listened to. I'd like them to be viewed, etc. Because
they're always good. I'll tell you that, folks. And deep, very deep.
I do okay, but I think it's a good question. The bigger issue is, when is the era really going to hit where that is our way of sharing music? Full stop for everybody, and that's going to come after Apple, Google, Amazon, and the other sort of on-demand music subscription players get in the market and they mature. That'll be part of the interface process and what I call the browse, because right now we're still in search mode, which is pull. The push and the browse need some more work. And the answer is, I'll put it out there. I got no issue.
There you have it. All right, Andrew, we're going to let you get back to work, move out of the basement up top, and I'll be talking to you again next week. You and I will get on the phone and talk some more. Audrey, you have a question there?
Well, I have a question. I was just wondering, since you're such an innovator and a visionary, I'm just wondering, since records fell off and now most of the revenue is basically generated from touring and other things, and 360 deals are coming into play, what do you think a solution potentially to revamp selling, I don't know, digitally, or what do you think it's going to take for labels to start making money again?
Okay, labels, just to get you up to speed a little bit, labels are making money again, just so you know, okay? You're a little hearkening back to a couple years ago.
Okay.
They're making money from advertising revenues on YouTube. They're getting $100 million checks. Streaming revenue starting to come in. iTunes download has exceeded record sales in stores, and the slide ended and the revenue's going back up. Okay, just so you know where we are today.
Right, but
okay?
it's not like what it was.
No,
Different mix to get there.
But remember, they fucked up the business for a good 10 to 15 years, probably 15 years, okay? If you look out 3 to 5 years and you see scale in the real model, which is the Spotify, Rhapsody, RDO, you know, et cetera, on-demand model, all right? iTunes is a model. Advertising rev share, which has never existed in the music business before, is a big model, okay? And that's going to succeed, scale. The artist direct pipelines that you have, artist direct, but the direct to consumer pipelines generate dollars as well. They're not measured inside record sales yet. So that market in general is healthy. It's not all tour revenue. That's a misnomer, right? What happened with tour revenue, and I'll come back to your specific question, is distribution was really fucked up. You couldn't get a band's record somewhere else. Rennie used to talk about, hey, I'm getting some emails from Chile. He didn't know what his royalty statements were. We went down to 25,000 people. It's because the internet allowed the music to get down there as well as piracy, and they built fan bases on their own, no promotion, no companies, no what have you.
And they could talk with you.
And that happened too. And you got a certain amount of emails and you knew it was over-indexing, right? But the streaming on-demand model scales big, all right? And it scales so big that once the labels become interested suppliers in this model, meaning they actually push it and the artists push it, they're not resisting it. You know, it needs to be, it's not just consumer-led, but it's actually supplier-led. I mean, right now for the last 5 years, even in the streaming model, they're saying don't do that, buy a CD still or buy on iTunes and buy a file. That's insane. They should be pushing people to sign up for this and then converting to paid members. Now, once they jump on board, and most of all, once Amazon, Apple, and Google enter the game, which doesn't matter because they each have 500 million paying consumers, the record business is going to get more wealthy and richer than they ever have in the history of the music business, by 5-fold, maybe 10-fold. So everything you're seeing now is a head fake, all right? The record business is maybe one of the best businesses to be in for the next 10 years of anything. You're going to have wild, rampant growth. And they don't have to do anything. They have to make their files available to these guys, whoever they are. Let's say Spotify. Spotify does all the work, okay? Captures the consumers and pays 70% back to the labels, including on catalog. Now, if you understand catalog, which is an old record or any record that's not a new artist currently getting spent on, okay? They have a fixed royalty rate. Sometimes it's low. The advances in marketing costs have all been paid off and recouped. It's pure profit. So every micro penny that comes in against them, there's a ocean of micro cents versus a, stream of nickels is going to get very big. So the record business really fucked themselves, because all these other businesses that take advantage of internet scale are huge. So that's your answer.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that too, because Jody Gerson was in here and she made a great comment that, the business has become a pennies business. And I think people had this mentality. The labels, I worked at Sony, you worked at a label, they were spending all their time trying to figure out how to make it work better for them. Very little conversation about how to make it work from the consumer side.
Yep.
The consumers were saying from very early on, we want to drive, we want it when we want it and how we want it. And big companies, Sony, Warner's, all of them, fought that because they had a sacred cow that had worked very well for many years. I agree with you long term, and I say it because I'm a 57-year-old guy that spends all my time discovering music, listening to music on Spotify, all these services. I could give a shit about having the physical copy of it. It's irrelevant to me because I lose it. It's too tough to track, and that's the difference. If somebody like me is into it, then my 16-year-old kid is going to be a no-brainer for this.
It's all crazy, and yes, but remember this, I was a record collector. You knew this.
Yes.
Okay?
I saw them every weekend.
I couldn't file them.
Yeah.
I couldn't find them.
Yeah.
What am I going to do, spend half my, it's like filing your emails.
Yeah.
That's insane. The whole thing's insane.
Yeah.
So the system broke, and nobody really cared about fixing it, except for tech guys.
Yeah. It's an interesting world we live in here, folks. Andrew, you still on there with us? No, we're gone. Okay. Well, you know what, guys? I promise I'd get you out of here somewhat on time here. We've gone a little over that.
If you want to
okay, well, let me ask you a couple more then. you obviously have a penchant for technology. You always have. Agencies, when I was looking to get a job in the record business or the William Morris mailroom and got rejected, it was pretty simple. You were going to book tour dates, and that's what it was. And you pick the biggest decision you had to make was what kind of suit you were going to wear back in the day, right? Today, you and agencies like William Morris Endeavor are actually changing the whole way that agencies look at the business. And if you look at the Billboard Power 100 from a couple weeks back, it is populated by more people in what I'll generally refer to the live business, managers, agents, and promoters than at any time I could ever imagine. And what they've done is supplanted all the guys that were at the record company. Speak to that, if you would.
The old time when we grew up, Rennie, was really biased in a stupid way. The music business always had an ecosystem of important players. People that ran Tower Records, people that ran radio stations. Nobody got recognized because the record guys were so full of themselves and the egos were so big. And, who the guy that identified found the act and it broke, got all the... There were big promoters, there were big concerts always, right? It was a really, like the rest of the music business, poorly organized mess, and the charts and the power lists or whatever the hell were poor as well, right? I think when you look at today the shift in power, or again, influence and everything else, it's again not right. The pendulum swung the other way to promoters and agent stuff because it's a two-part question, right? And it's balanced because really there's multiple segments in the industry and they all add in, right? There's technology guys that are influencing more than any of us, frankly, okay? If you put Steve Jobs on the list, he was on the list, but he's big. Jeff Bezos, he's big on these lists. Now, he doesn't specifically sign bands. Does it matter?
No.
With the iPhone and iTunes? No, of course not. So, or Daniel Ek on the list at Spotify or any of this. Everybody's adding value. Tim Westergren at Pandora. So, first of all, the lists are fucked up. That's the first thing, all right? It's nice to be recognized, but it's also wrong that Lucien Grange is the only record guy on the list, so to speak. Two, I think you're looking at where's the action and where's the value chain sort of protected. Had the labels not buried their heads in the sand, protected the sacred cows, been in front, been pushing browse, been pushing,
and thinking
YouTube,
consumer instead of
thinking
company.
consumer, you'd have a more balanced, not only revenue and power structure. It would become evident. What really happened, all right, simply put, is they dogged the game. They decided if it was golf, they decided to drive with a putter for 15 years, okay? And so they were out of the game, all right? And the beauty of the internet was it freed up distribution. Now, it was good they were out of the game because they were the ones fucking up the distribution in the first place, all right? But once distribution got on YouTube and got everywhere else, okay, and kids could just get music and get video, okay, what they then want to see? They wanted to learn more about the artist, they wanted to buy shit from the artist, and they wanted to go see the artist, okay? And going to see the artist traditionally, I don't care what it was, even back in Rennie the 50s when he was doing this, all right, and ticket prices were $6, I'm kidding.
$750 for the Rolling Stones, $650
But the point was,
time.
even then, the ticket prices were more expensive than the album.
Yes.
So it became, when you looked at who was pulling out money and how much they were spending, the concert was always the highest price point, followed by the t-shirt, followed by the record, all right, and then some other things. So the concert, the value of that live community experience, that live social experience, was always high. It just had bad distribution again, right? So today what's happened is globalization. You have more countries that just came back from South America that have infrastructure. When I started to go to South America 25 years ago, okay, I went down with Echo and the Bunnymen in New Order. There was 1,000% inflation a year. They were changing currencies from
While
the
you were doing
Cruzeiro
the
to the
concert
Cruzado
set,
when I was down there. There was political coups going on where they lost their leaders. That's not a stable infrastructure to take a bandage. You can't get the money out of the country. You can't get anything. You don't even know if you're going to get
You don't even know if
whatever.
you're going to get out.
So what's happening around the world is there's a lot of things happening, including infrastructure, stable governments. Now, the influence of YouTube and music coming in without going a record store that was 700 miles away. It was such a badly distributed architecture that now you're starting to see a real marketplace, okay? And concerts are a key part of the marketplace that actually you can't put through the internet well. So they still, like even the going to the movies is still an experience too. You can get the movies at home on Netflix, but there's a percentage of the audience that wants to go see it on a big screen and with other people. So what can I tell you? It's a healthy industry all around. And the biggest issue that trumps all this is what happens in the world when content becomes available, okay? Movies available, TV shows available, books available, video games available, music's available, all right? And porn's available, and financial information available, and ESPN golf's available everywhere, and soccer's available, and cricket, wherever you are. What happens? What's popular? Guess what? Music's fucking huge, and maybe at the top of the list, which is crazy. So if you work in the music business, you should be thrilled that in an open market, it's getting bigger.
Yeah. Geigs, a lot of people are pretty dark about this music business. Marc Geiger is not one of them. And I share your sentiment. And I got to tell you, I say it to the folks all the time. I have been energized, right, with our little show here, this ability to let you connect across borders and talk to people and make them part of the conversation is giving me great hope for the business. And some of the folks that have been stiffing and holding it back, sadly, for in some cases, but fortunately in others, they're moving out, and a new wave has taken over. And Marc Geiger, my friend, has been at the front end of it for a very long time, I will say. And I want to just say thanks for joining us here today, Geigs. We could go on for hours, folks, but I got to go to freaking Coachella. Okay, rock the house. By the way, first time out there, guys. I'm taking the two Rennie boys.
First time I funded the first Coachella.
By the way,
I can't believe you don't remember.
We were just running. Yes.
God
okay.
damn. The first Lollapalooza, all of them, right? Paul Tillett, one of our dear friends.
Dear friends. Okay. The Beav, I call him. Beaver Cleaver of Rock.
By the way, he looks great. Lost 20 pounds, put on muscle. He looks really amazing.
He's muscling up. I got to
funny, except for me. So he lost a shitload of money in year one. And we had Artist Direct going. Rennie was working there at the time. Paul Tillett came in crying because he thought Golden Voice was going bankrupt and his dream was over. And we actually cut him a $500,000 check, saved the company.
Smart move.
And we had a 3-year deal with him, if you remember, to put our little logo on every Golden Voice ad. But it was really to support friends. And, I go every year. So it's funny. And I went to South by since the beginning. And they're all great. And I just did it again. I came back from Lollapalooza in Chile and Sao Paulo, which our Coachella is down there, right? And we have Chicago. The festival world, it's until you go and until you see the enormity of the event, which is partially why webcasts and the event fulls or the stages and all those, it doesn't really compare with that experience. It's an experience.
Well, because when you go to a concert, and we had Seth Hurwitz on Monday, and he made a comment about, he still gets excited.
I do too.
When you're walking out of the hallway in the dress room and the production manager's going, all right, cut the lights, and the band is getting ready and the lights are down and people are getting amped up. I'm 57. I got to tell you, folks, I still feel jacked up when that starts to happen, and I take my position at the soundboard and turn to Darren LeGros and everybody go, are we ready to go? Let's do this. And bang, when it goes, it's still the greatest thing in the world. And it's personal, is what it is. Agree. Can't replace that. So. I agree. Anyway, folks, I'd love to have you back, Guy, because you come back on for part 2 one day.
Always.
We'll take some more questions. On Monday, let's go to the network device here, Mr. LeGros. On Monday, I've got so many shows coming up, hard to keep track, folks. On Monday, everybody wants to get the money. You got to get the money to play in this business. So we're going to do a little segment on crowdfunding with Karen Baer from Indiegogo, which is an alternative to the
Kickstarter.
To Kickstarter. Thank you, guys. We're going to be talking to a band that taken it beyond concept. Another Canadian band. Oh God, Canada. Keep that. Canada thing here, Dee. We're using that. We're going to be speaking with them on Monday about this whole process. Indiegogo is a great platform. These guys raised $350,000. Nobody's even talking about it. It's how it all becomes passé so fast. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you learned something. If you didn't learn something today, I just say give up, go get the law degree, and become a lawyer. Anyway, sorry, Lodge. I'm just kidding you. All right, my name is Steve Rennie. That's Marc Geiger. That's
Audrey Benwali.
Audrey Benwali. The show's Renman Live. Website's renmanmusicandbusiness.com. I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on Monday. I am out of here.